You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and on Thursday, I started the show off by talking about the death of Tom Seaver. And I basically said that if something as monumental as that happened, even though we knew he was sick for a long time, but again, when someone that iconic passes away, you kind of need to lead off with him. Playoffs take a back seat. I put Lou Brock in that same category. Definitely not as dominant as Seaver. If I had to rank my best players of the 1970s, Seaver would be ahead of Brock. But it's closer than you'd think. This is a guy who had 3,000 hits. Was the best speedster of all time until this guy named Rickey Henderson came along. He was incredibly dominant. So yeah, I'm going to start off this show with eulogizing the late, great Lou Brock. If you really know your baseball history, you'll know that Brock started off his career as a Chicago Cub. And with the Cubs, he was good, solid player. He wanted to be a power hitter, and that's how the Cubs saw him. They tried to get his power going. Because when you look at Lou Brock, you see power, right? His rookie season was 1962. And in one game that season, Brock did show off his really, really good strength. He was a strong guy. He once hit a home run into the center field bleachers of the Polo Grounds. That was where the Mets played before Shea Stadium. So the Cubs kept working with him to become more of a power hitter. In 62, he finished with 9 home runs, and he did the same thing in 63. At the trade deadline in 1964, the course of baseball history changed forever. The Cubs were frustrated with Brock's development. He just wasn't coming along the way that they hoped he would. He was topping out as a 250, 260 hitter. Wasn't going to hit double-digit home runs in a season. He had decent speed, but not great speed. At least that's how the Cubs saw him. So they wanted to move him. The St. Louis Cardinals, 15 years before Whitey Herzog instituted Whitey Ball, wanted to increase their speed. So when Bing Devine, the Cardinals GM at the time, saw an opportunity to add Brock to Johnny Keane's lineup, Keane was the manager of the Cardinals at the time, he jumped all over it. Now, some of you probably know the trade that Brock was part of as Brock for Brolio. That's technically inaccurate. The trade was Brock, Jack Spring, and Paul Toth to the Cardinals for Brolio, Doug Clemens, and Bobby Shantz. But having said that, you really only need to know about Brock and Brolio. That's why the trade has gone down in baseball history as Brock for Brolio, because they were the two biggest pieces in the trade. Shantz had a good career, former Yankee, won an MVP, but was way past his prime by the time he was traded to the Cubs. At the time, this was viewed as a coup for the Cubs. Brolio had established himself as one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. In 1960, his sophomore season, he led the majors in wins with 21. And in 62 and 63, he finished with 3 ERAs, finished with winning records. He was a really good pitcher, but what no one knew at the time except the Cardinals was that Brolio's arm was ready to fall off. In just 1961, so just one season, he had 20 cortisone shots in his throwing shoulder. The Cardinals knew that Brolio was not long for the majors. In fact, with the Cubs, he only started 33 games. He only appeared in 59. He went 7-19 with a 5.4 ERA. Needless to say, the Cardinals knew what they were doing in getting a guy like Brock. At the time of the trade, the Cardinals were an under 500 team. They were 8th in the National League, and were actually behind the Cubs. With Brock in the lineup, the Cardinals ended up going on a crazy run to win the pennant and would end up beating the Yankees in 7 games to win the World Series. For the Cardinals that year, Brock hit .348 with 12 homers, 44 RBIs, and 33 steals. In the World Series, he hit .300 with a home run and 5 RBIs. After that, Brock solidified himself as a star in the majors. The Cardinals didn't want him to hit home runs. That isn't why they traded for him. Again, it was Whitey Ball before Whitey Ball. They wanted him to run. They knew the speed he had. They wanted him to use it. So in 65, he stole 63 bases. he did keep his power up. He finished with 16 home runs, the second most he would hit in his career, but again, it was secondary. The 69 RBIs, the second most he'd have in his career. Secondary. The Cardinals wanted him to run, and run he did. In 66, Brock led the majors with 74 steals. That started a streak where Brock would lead the National League in steals in 8 of 9 seasons. The one year he didn't was 1970, when Bobby Tolan stole 57 bags. For whatever it's worth, Brock finished second that year. But can you imagine leading a league in steals in 8 of 9 seasons? In fact, I'll even go a step further. From 1965 to 1976, Brock never had less than 50 steals in a season. That is a 12-year stretch when Brock had at least 50 steals. That is incredible. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I want to tell you about his 1967 season. That year, Brock set career highs in home runs and RBIs. He had 299 with 21 homers and 76 ribbies. He made his first All-Star team, and he was the second best player on a Cardinals team that would go on to beat the impossible dream Red Sox in the World Series. For whatever it's worth, Orlando Cepeda was their best player. In the World Series that year, Brock was great. He hit .414 and stole 7 bases without getting thrown out once. If Bob Gibson didn't pitch 3 complete games where he only gave up a total of 3 runs, it's a fair bet to say that Brock probably would have won World Series MVP. The year after that was the year of the pitcher. The Cardinals had one of the greatest pitching staffs in baseball history. Anchored by Gibson, who went 22-9 with a 1.12 ERA, something that not even DeGrom has done. I mean, Gibson that year was insane. There's no other word for it. He pitched over 300 innings. Of his 34 starts, he completed 28 of them. And he ended up pitching 13 shutouts. It's one of the most dominant performances by a pitcher in a single season in baseball history. But outside of him, the Cardinals had a great staff. Nelson Briles, Steve Carlton, Ray Washburn, Joe Horner as the closer. Brock got his. He had 279 and had 62 steals. But that was the year of the pitcher. And the Cardinals went up against the Tigers. in the World Series that year. They had their own stud on the mound, Denny McLain. Incredibly nice guy. He went 31-6 with a 1.96 ERA. Started 41 games, completed 28 of them, pitched 336 innings. The Tigers did go on to win the World Series that year, but if the Cardinals had won, it's very possible that Brock would have won World Series MVP. Gibson was great, but he wasn't as dominant. Brock would hit .464 in that series with 2 homers, 5 ribbies, and 7 steals. I'll fast forward a little bit to 1974. Much like Seaver, if I don't fast forward, we're going to be here until New Year's. That year, Brock had his best season. He stole 118 bags. That broke Maury Wills's record for most steals in a season. He finished second in MVP voting behind Steve Garvey. For a period of time, Brock had more steals than anyone. Ty Cobb, Billy Hamilton, Dummy Hoy, whoever you want to say. Brock was the king. Some people say that it was actually Cobb's record that he broke. Other people say Billy Hamilton. It's a big rabbit hole to go down, but all you need to know is that Brock ended up with more steals than Hamilton and Cobb. And again, it took Rickey Henderson to break Brock's record. If Rickey Henderson needs to break your record, you're doing something right. Part of the reason that he was so good was because he was a student of the game. I did not know this. Thank you, Wikipedia. Brock had a movie camera, and he would film opposing pitchers from the dugout to find weaknesses that he could take advantage of. On August 13th, 1979, against his former team, the Chicago Cubs, Brock got his 3,000th hit. He hit it against Dennis Lamp. Another Seaver connection. Lamp was the guy who the White Sox lost, so that way they could take Seaver in the free agent draft. He would finish his career with 3,023 hits, 938 steals, 6 All-Star games. He hit over 300 in 8 seasons. His single-season stolen base record stood until Henderson broke it in 1982. He was a dominant World Series performer. His .391 World Series batting average is the highest for anyone who's played in over 20 World Series games. Again, thank you, Wikipedia. His 14 steals in the World Series is a record. He had 13 hits in the 68 World Series. That is the most hits by anyone in a single World Series. He shares that record with Bobby Richardson and Marty Barrett. He was the first player to ever bat in a Major League game in Canada. He was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1985, his first year of eligibility, and he died yesterday at the age of 81. May he rest in peace. Moving on now to the NBA playoffs, and I'm going to go through every series starting with Bucks Heat. Look, this series is over. I don't think the Bucks are winning 3 straight games. They already won 1, so 1 down, 3 to go. But I don't see it. I mean, it took a Herculean effort from Chris Middleton for the Bucks to win their game yesterday, and even then, they had to do it in overtime. If Giannis had played the full game, the Bucks win it easily, and it is good that the Bucks were able to win without Giannis. But the Heat have done a fantastic job of limiting the Bucks' effectiveness. More than anything, I think this was a Heat loss. They took their foot off the gas when Giannis left the game. And if Giannis plays tomorrow, big if, there's no way he's going to be at 100%. The Heat will know that they can't overlook the Bucks. I think they're winning tomorrow. I think this series is over. Again, very impressive that the Bucks were able to win without Giannis. I give Chris Middleton credit. But the Heat have thoroughly outplayed the Bucks in this series. I thought they'd give the Bucks a hard time, but I didn't think they'd beat the Bucks. Alright, this is a scary Heat team. Playoff Jimmy Butler, Jay Crowder, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, who was hitting clutch threes yesterday, and Goran Dragic. I mean, if Dragic hits one more 3 in regulation, that's it. The Heat sweep. If I had to pin this loss on a Heat player, it's Dragic. He went 1 for 9 from beyond the arc. That's dreadful. So again, I really think this was a case of the Heat losing rather than the Bucks winning. Moving on now to Raptors-Celtics. And the Raptors have made this series very, very interesting. It's now down to a best 2 out of 3. The Celtics don't look as good now as they did the first 2 games of this series. And you can even add Game 3 to that also. It took a video game-like play for the Raptors to win that game. The Celtics did play well enough to win in Game 3, but Game 4 they didn't. No one played well for the Celtics. I understand Jason Tatum had a double-double, but he shot 1 for 6 from beyond the arc and had 5 turnovers. I expect more from Tatum than that. Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, and Marcus Smart combined to shoot 4 for 23 from 3. They combined for just 37 points. You can't win like that if you're the Celtics. The Raptors did a great job defensively, but at the end of the day, these guys need to produce if the Celtics are going to win. It's just that simple. I mean, I give Pascal Siakam credit for showing up. OG Anunoby has done a really good job defensively. Kyle Lowry's shown up. Fred VanVleet has shown up. Serge Ibaka has shown up. This is turning into a really interesting series. I'm really excited to see how it unfolds. Moving on now to Lakers-Rockets. And Frank Vogel got his head out of his ass for their game yesterday. In Game 1, he did not let Anthony Davis and LeBron James take over as much as he should have. That's why the Lakers lost. The two of them combined for 31 field goal tries. That's not bad, but that's not where it should be. It should be in the 40s. And it was in the 40s for yesterday's game. They combined for 41 field goal tries. Davis was insane. 34 and 10. LeBron nearly had a triple-double. 28, 11, and 9. I don't understand why the Lakers tried to get cute in Game 1. They didn't yesterday. They let Davis and LeBron use their size. And Markieff Morris provided a great shooting threat. He was fantastic. 6 for 8 from the field, 4 for 5 from beyond the arc. That's a superb performance from Morris. Just let AD and LeBron do their thing. Let them use their size. The Rockets cannot stop it. And that's not hyperbole. They literally cannot stop it. They don't have anyone close to them in terms of size. I mean, I give James Harden, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, and Robert Covington credit for what they were able to do offensively. Neither one of them scored less than 17 points. But defensively, they can't match up with LeBron and AD. It's just that simple. I mean, there are a lot of people pinning this loss on Russell Westbrook. And yeah, Westbrook was dreadful in this game, and he has not had a good playoffs. He shot 4 for 15 from the field and 1 for 7 from beyond the arc to go with 7 turnovers. And Jeff Green only shot the ball twice. That doesn't work. But I'm not pinning this loss on Westbrook. I'm pinning this loss on the Rockets' lack of size. They made a clear effort to go all in on small ball. They left themselves susceptible to a team like the Lakers. Now they're going to have to reap what they sow. Moving on now to Clippers Nuggets. And I give the Nuggets credit for what they were able to do on Saturday. Jokic and Jamal Murray went off. Alright, they each hit 10 field goals. They each finished with at least 26 points. Jokic had a double-double. And when Jokic is playing like that, he's unstoppable. I like Ivica Zubac, but he cannot stop Jokic. And Patrick Beverley getting ejected didn't help matters. That's why Murray went off. Kawhi shooting just 4 for 17 from the field is another reason why the Clippers lost. If the Clippers can get their heads screwed on straight and play the way that we all know they can beat the Nuggets. It's only when they get sloppy that they're susceptible to an upset. Moving on now to hockey, and oh my God, the Islanders did it! They did it! I still can't believe it! 27 years! Islanders fans have waited for this moment to go back to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they destroy the Flyers. In a do-or-die Game 7, Barry Trotz makes the fantastic decision to start Thomas Greiss. I wasn't sure if I would have started Greiss or not. I didn't envy Trotz at all for being in that position. But give Greiss all the credit in the world. Give the Islander defense all the credit in the world. They only allowed the Flyers to get off 16 shots. Greiss stopped them all. At the end of the day, if you have a shutout on your ledger, you're doing something right. This was a fantastic game for the Islanders. This is what they can do when they're playing their style of hockey. Defense-first hockey. Neutral zone trap hockey. And they're going up against a team in the Lightning that I actually think they match up pretty well against. The Lightning are built on offense. A great defense stops a great offense. Alright, the Lightning are going to get theirs. Guys like Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman are fantastic players. But I think the Islanders have this. I really do. You may think I'm a homer for this. You know what? I don't care. Islanders in 6. How fitting would it be to be back in Edmonton for a Stanley Cup clinching game where the dynasty ended all those years ago? I will get to the Western Conference, though. Stars, Golden Knights. And my God, was this a fast-moving game. I mean, it was blink and you missed it. Very few stoppages, only one goal. There were only 6 total penalties in the game. Give both goalies credit. They played well. Fleury made 24 saves, and Khudobin made 25 saves. Fleury just couldn't stop a John Klingberg shot that Klingberg was in fantastic position for. The puck took a great Stars bounce, and Klingberg was there to clean it up. There was very little Fleury could do there. I mean, the Stars played a risky style of hockey at the end. Islanders style of hockey, where they just sat back and didn't try to get that insurance marker. They just wanted to make sure the Golden Knights didn't get any quality chances. The Golden Knights outshot the Stars 13-2 in the third period. But that's what the Stars do. That's how they got here in the first place. They're a defense-first team. It didn't bother me that the Stars did that. I was surprised at the physical play. Both teams combined for 96 hits. I definitely didn't see that coming. I'm still going to make a pick. The only thing we know is that the Golden Knights aren't gonna sweep the Stars. Okay, that's all we know. And maybe I'm crazy for picking the Golden Knights, because they're already down in this series, but I was leaning Golden Knights before this series started. I'm gonna stick with them. I'm gonna say Golden Knights in 6. There is a lot of NFL news to talk about. I mean, we have some signings to talk about. We have some extensions to break down. It's great. Football is here, and I couldn't be happier. The first story concerns the end of one of the most prolonged free agencies for a star player in NFL history. Jadeveon Clowney has finally been signed. He will be a Titan. He's not going to be a Saint. I admire the Saints for their creativity, for what they tried to do. If you didn't hear it, what they tried to do was get another team, most likely the Browns, to sign Clowney, pay him initially, and then the Saints would trade for him right after that, for like a second-round pick. I mean, again, I admire the creativity, but the NFL wasn't gonna allow that. So Clowney ended up with the Titans on a one-year deal worth at least $12 million and at most $15 million. That is a fantastic contract. Alright, I've been screaming for the Jets to sign Jadeveon Clowney for months. According to Pro Football Focus, last year he had an 87.3 overall grade to go along with 3 sacks. He would have gone a long way towards solidifying a dismal Jets pass rush. They really needed a player like Clowney. I knew they weren't going to sign him, but to see him sign for this type of a contract, when the Jets have gobs and gobs of cap space, just ticks me off to no end. They have the third most cap space in the NFL right now, at over $30 million. Only the Browns and Patriots have more. I mean, I don't get it. I don't see why the Jets didn't go after him harder. I don't understand why he lasted so long. I thought he was going to sign a massive contract. The fact that the Titans were able to get him for this is the steal of the offseason. Moving on now to the Texans locking up Deshaun Watson to the second richest deal in NFL history. Patrick Mahomes still has the richest, and the Ravens will be hard-pressed to break that when it's Lamar Jackson's turn to get his extension. But as of right now, it's Mahomes and then Watson. Watson signed a 4-year extension worth $156 million. That's $39 million a year. Look, I love Deshaun Watson. I thought he was the best quarterback in the 2017 draft. Yes, that was the same draft that had Patrick Mahomes, but Watson was the better prospect to a lot of people. I mean, it could be worse. I could have had Mitchell Trubisky as my best quarterback in that draft. A lot of people had Trubisky at number 1. Watson is a great player. He throws for 4,000 yards, completes over 67% of his passes, back-to-back 26 touchdown seasons. And he's great with his legs, too. you add his rushing touchdowns in, he scored over 30 touchdowns in his last 2 years. And 2 years ago, he was playing behind a dismal offensive line. He was sacked the most times out of any quarterback. And he still put together a great season. I love Deshaun Watson. I take him on my team in a second. But he is not the second best player in the NFL. He's not even the second best quarterback in the NFL. He has done nothing in the playoffs. He has only won one playoff game. He beat the Bills last year. Good for him. You know what? Really doesn't mean much, because the Chiefs dropped 51 on the Texans the week after. I mean, I understand that's not Watson's fault, but it still counts for something. I understand why the Texans did this. It was Watson's turn to get paid. And when you're dealing with quarterbacks, it doesn't matter what his ability is. It just matters when it's his turn to get his big boy contract. But this is a tough deal to justify right now. I don't hate it. Again, I know why the Texans did it. They didn't have much of a choice. But the Texans need to win soon for this deal to really be worth their while. Moving on now to the Chargers locking up Keenan Allen for 4 more years at $80.1 million. The significance of that $100,000 is that it makes Allen the second highest paid wide receiver in terms of AAV in the league, period. If he didn't get that $100,000, he would have been tied with Amari Cooper. Keenan Allen is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's gotten past the injury bug that bit him earlier in his career. He's put together 3 straight seasons where he's caught at least 97 passes. He's had just about at least 1,200 receiving yards. Technically, it's lower than that, but I'm rounding up. It's really close, so I don't feel bad doing that. He only has 6 touchdowns in his past 3 seasons, which I'm not crazy about, but I can only pin so much of that on him. I don't mind him being the second highest paid wide receiver in the league in terms of AAV. When you look at total value, he's 7th among wide receivers. That's really fair. I like this deal for the Chargers. They're set up really well for the future with Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler and now Keenan Allen in the fold long term. Tom Telesco has done a great job of remaking the Chargers. Moving on now to the Bills, locking up Tredavius White for 4 more years at $69 million. That makes him the 4th highest paid corner in terms of total value. And when you look at AAV, he is the highest paid corner in the league. Tredavius White has earned that honor. His Pro Football Focus grades are surprisingly bad. In 2018, only 61 overall. Last year, 76.4. That's not abysmal or anything, but White's better than that. White is one of the 5 best corners in the NFL. In fact, if you put him higher than that, I wouldn't be upset. This move makes a ton of sense for the Bills. They have to keep their core in place. Their window to win is now. They made the big trade to get Stephon Diggs. They have a really good core around Josh Allen. Can Allen get better? The answer is yes. I like Josh Allen. I like him a lot. But the Bills are set up well to win right now. They had to keep White in the fold. And they did so at a very fair rate. I don't mind this deal at all for him. The last extension to talk about is Cam Hayward getting a 4-year one. I'm sensing a theme here with these 4-year extensions. Worth $71.4 million. And this is a fantastic move for the Steelers. Cameron Hayward is one of, if not the most underrated player in the NFL. Last year, he had a Pro Football Focus grade of 91.5. He's never had a Pro Football Focus grade worse than 61.3, and that was in his rookie season. He's been really good ever since he's entered the league. I remember liking him a lot out of OSU. He is an elite defensive lineman. Make no mistake about it. And this contract puts him in the 16-17 range in terms of highest paid defensive lineman. If the Steelers wanted to put him in the top 5, I wouldn't have been upset about it. To give him this contract is more than fair. I mean, this is the best contract of all the extensions I've talked about. This is a stupendous move for the Steelers. There's no other word for it. Moving on now to a really interesting trade. And it's a trade that got a lot of heat thrown at the Raiders. But in a weird way, I kind of understand it. The Raiders traded Lynn Bowden Jr. and a 6th to the Dolphins for a 4th rounder. And it's actually the 4th rounder that the Raiders traded in the Raekwon McMillan deal. So if you boil this down to the ground, it's Raekwon McMillan and a 5th for Lynn Bowden and a 6th. I liked Bowden a lot coming out of Kentucky. He played quarterback, he played running back, he played wide receiver. I thought John Gruden could have gotten really creative with how he used him. But at the end of the day, the Raiders are kind of set at all 3 of those positions. At quarterback, they have Derek Carr, and they have Marcus Mariota as his backup. I'll take that. I'll take that in a heartbeat. At running back, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Richard, and Devontae Booker. Josh Jacobs is one of the best young running backs in the NFL. He had a fantastic rookie season. And at wide receiver, the Raiders made 2 other wide receivers high picks. Henry Ruggs III and Bryan Edwards. You put them with Hunter Renfrow, where's Bowden getting his reps? I'm reminded of Ja'Kai Polite. The Jets' 3rd rounder from last year. Joe Douglas cut him before he ever played a game in the NFL. The reason being that he was a cancer in the locker room. And I defended it because if you know you've wasted a pick, or if Mike Maccagnan wasted a pick because Joe Douglas didn't make that pick, it's better to just cut your losses right away. Well, the Raiders did more than just cut their losses here. They got a pick back. Yes, they're in essence trading a third and a sixth for a fourth. But if you add Raekwon McMillan to the equation, it's a third and a sixth for McMillan and a fifth. I don't mind that for the Raiders. I think the Dolphins won the trade because I like Lynn Bowden, and I do think he's going to have a good NFL career. But I really don't hate what the Raiders did. It makes a little bit of sense. Not a lot of sense. Just a little bit. If nothing else, they sold him at his highest value. If they feel that they wasted a pick, better to just cut your losses right away. Moving on now to the Lions, bringing in Adrian Peterson for 1 year at $1,050,000. And I like the move for the Lions. It makes sense if you're bringing him in as a pseudo-coach. I don't want to see him take away reps from Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift. He can take reps away from Ty Johnson. I don't mind that. But he can't take away reps from the second rounders. Adrian Peterson still has talent. He's not the Adrian Peterson of old, but he's still really good. And he's going to function as a pseudo-coach for Johnson and Swift. It makes sense for the Lions to bring him in. The fit doesn't make sense for Peterson unless he really wants to get into coaching. And he thinks that this is the end of the line. It's possible the Lions promised him something. Do a good job in mentoring these guys and we'll make you running backs coach. I don't mind that. But I don't see Peterson getting a big opportunity in Detroit to strut his stuff. I'm surprised the Jaguars didn't lock him up. The last story today concerns practice squad news. And I would never talk about the practice squad unless it was something as big as the Buccaneers signing Josh Rosen to their practice squad. Rosen surprisingly got cut by the Dolphins. They're content to go into the season with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa as their only quarterbacks, despite the fact that they gave up a second rounder for Rosen just under 18 months ago. And there were rumors that the Dolphins were shopping Rosen. Evidently, they couldn't find a trade partner. I really don't understand why. I think Josh Rosen has talent. I think he has potential. He was in 2 terrible situations in his 2 seasons. With the Cardinals, he doesn't get a full season to strut his stuff. When he played, he didn't look terrible. He didn't look great, but he didn't look terrible. Cliff Kingsbury comes in and wants to draft Kyler Murray. That's his right. So the Cardinals cut bait on Rosen. They send him to the Dolphins. The Dolphins are actively tanking. Rosen is running for his life on every play, and he looked terrible. I get that. But how can you not see the talent that he has? This is a guy who just 2 years ago was the 10th overall pick. I actually thought he was the best quarterback in the 2018 draft. Now, granted, I look really stupid right now, but I'm just being honest with you. For whatever it's worth, the correct order is Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, either Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, and then Josh Rosen. If you want to put Mason Rudolph in there also, you can. But you'd have to put him behind Darnold and Mayfield. You could put him ahead of Rosen, though. I understand that it seems like he's never going to live up to that billing of being my best quarterback and being the 10th overall pick. But A, he has potential, and B, he's now in a great spot in Tampa Bay. He's learning behind two offensive geniuses in Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. The Buccaneers do need a quarterback of the future. Tom Brady's going to be there for at least 2 years, but when he retires, the Buccaneers are going to need a new quarterback. It's not Blaine Gabbert, and it's not Ryan Griffin. It can be Josh Rosen. You give him a year or two to learn under Arians and Brady, and you put him with this really good Buccaneers offensive line and the great weapons that they have, Rosen can turn it around. Now, having said that, he has to seize this opportunity. He has to be the first person in the building and the last person out. He has to constantly be picking Arians and Brady's brains. In fact, it should get to the point that they want him to take a break from learning stuff. That's how much of a gym rat he should be. There were concerns about his effort level coming out of UCLA, but it's put up or shut up time right now. If Rosen doesn't seize this moment, that's it. His NFL career is over. And the autograph card that I have of him is going to be worthless. New York Yankees show coming your way this evening. My God, am I going to tear him a new one. Regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show coming your way tomorrow. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying, happy belated birthday, Grandma, and happy belated anniversary, Mom and Dad.